So obviously, since I don't know shit about comics outside of movies and video games,
and Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool I do know. I've downloaded, acquired enough of his comics. I know a bit about it. But something's been going on, the great Comicsgate, and we wanted to discuss it, but we needed to have a couple people who actually know what the fuck they're talking about, so that's why we invited Demon Eater and Artemis Worm, aka Classic Jacob.
Yep, the best one.
You're gonna get an earful when Wildcards comes on. But anyways, so the social justice movement has been trudging along, enveloping everything that it can get a hold of, whether it's by the fans or not, that's to be debated. But they tried to steamroll video games, and that backfired.
Well, they've had partial success.
Well, some, but there was a lot of resistance. It caused a shitstorm, which is kind of partially why we're here on YouTube. But they've also been trying to, I guess, take over other aspects of popular culture, and that includes comics.
Yep.
Oh,
so if someone would like to go into details about exactly what's happening.
Okay, well, it kind of all started back in 2015, at least as far as my perspective, with Marvel's all-new, all-different Marvel initiative, when they sort of decided, just out of the blue, basically, they're going to change up all the characters and try to shake things up, so they had decided Thor was unworthy. And we didn't get any background for this at the time. Basically, the villain of the comic Original Sin, who I won't reveal for spoiler purposes, whispers into Thor's ear, suddenly he can't wield his hammer anymore, he's unworthy, he's out of a job. And then it's going to be replaced by a woman who, again, we don't know who they are, they didn't reveal it at the time, they were going to wield it and they were just automatically morally better. It wasn't just that she took his powers and everything, it's just that any time when he confronted her, she, almost delighted in the fact that he couldn't use the power anymore, to, kind of pushed his hammer against him, taunting him. He didn't even let him use the name of Thor. He was just Odin's son now. And
yeah, that's like if Hillary Clinton wanted, she called herself Obama.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Hillary Clinton in this comic basically has Obama's nuts inside of her purse. I've got your hammer, and you can't do anything about it.
Do you not remember the comic that I can't remember if it was Marvel or DC, but one of them released a comic in which Hillary Clinton was a fucking superhero?
It was DC because it was tied in. It was tied into the Watcher, the Watchers.
Yeah, Watchmen.
That's it. Goddamn. This is how much I don't know shit about comics.
No, that's fine.
It was tied into the Ascension scene of the Watchmen, where Dr. Manhattan ascends to Mars.
Yep. Well, and for the record, I honestly believe that after Hillary Clinton lost the election, Obama went out behind the Oval Office or wherever he was, snuck a cigarette that he had hidden in a drawer, lit it, took a long drag, and just said, I never liked that bitch anyway.
No, what he did was he pulled a cigar out of the White House drawer, smelled it, and says, "What the fuck is that smell?"
Oh shit!
But getting back to the subject at hand,
yes.
Don't get back to the subject at hand. This is the fun stuff.
There has been a swathe of comics lately that have tried to promote this whole pansexual, non-binary, feminist agenda. To the point
largely
where,
feminist.
Yes.
To the point where it's actually cringe. The story and the character doesn't matter. It's the narrative that they're pushing that matters now, according to the writers. Which is why you have comics like American Chavez. A comic that was pretty much reviled by most comic fans, and was just reeked of social justice. It starred a Latina character who was a college student, and her name was America, which obvious social commentary there.
Yep.
Who full aliens, and she was also a lesbian, and it's
no! You have barely begun to enter the rabbit hole, my friend. No, see, okay, America was born from an all-female utopia, which she was forced to leave as a sacrifice to try to better man's world, Wonder Woman much, and on top of that, in addition to that, her powers were very ill-defined, to the point that at one point she punches a hole through time to go back in time to punch Hitler 5 seconds before Captain America does, for no discernible reason.
Except a social commentary. It's the kill baby Hitler thing.
Look, this character's better than Captain America because she punched Hitler and she did it first.
We're standing in the middle of a battlefield.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is with this comic as well, is that a bunch of people who commented also happened to be, gay or lesbian, and said that it's the most embarrassing representation of them they have ever seen.
Shallow.
It is. It's incredibly
the only
shallow.
quality was the luchador grandmother.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes back to that joke that the old CCS crew, we used to have an acquaintance who was writing a subject short story pitch for Amazon services to make a potential TV series out of, or Amazon series out of. And the entire crutch was, this character is lesbian. And we're reading it and going, okay, well, what's the plot? She's a lesbian. No. What's the story? She's a lesbian. And it's just like, it's just so cringe.
Amazon will probably pick that up. Or Netflix.
Well, they would have now. I mean,
Well,
the guy was ahead of his time.
I thought it was Amy Pascal.
Oh, shit.
The woman behind such masterpieces as Ghostbusters and
2016.
Ghostbusters 2016, The Post, which is essentially just a big fuck you to Donald Trump, and how, the media's great, isn't it? And Spider-Man Homecoming, which despite being quite a decent film, was just absolutely saturated in social justice stuff that just made your eyes roll in the back of your head so hard.
Well,
And didn't Amy Pascal also want to make that one Spider-Man thing called The Glass Ceiling, starring Aunt May, where she couldn't become a doctor or something?
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. She's got 2 upcoming films coming out. The Barbie film, which was originally supposed to star Amy Schumer, if you.
Are you sure it wasn't the Cabbage Patch film?
And a film called Princesses, which I'm sure is an ironic title.
Yeah. Okay.
So is the Amy Schumer movie accurate Barbie just called Family Size Barbie?
Supersized Barbie.
Oh my gosh. But anyways, just kind of getting back to the history of the event. After that happened, there was kind of a lot of backlash to the whole Lady Thor situation, especially as it got weirder and weirder going into different comics. You had
Yeah, because not to cut you off,
That's
dude,
fine.
because I mean you're the guest, but I'm looking at this Bustle article, and it's called "Marvel's Female Thor Isn't Going to Take Your Misogyny, and Neither Are Her Comic Book Creators." And I'm looking at clips of this, right?
Yep.
I'm looking at clips, and there's this character called Crusher, and he's like this big,
Crusher Hogan,
dark-skinned guy who looks like he's like a prisoner with a ball and chain. shit.
Absorbing Man, yeah.
And he says, quote, Thor to Lady Thor, "Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to call you Thor? Damn feminists ruin everything. You want to be a chick superhero? Fine, who the hell cares? But get your own identity. Thor's a dude, one of the last manly dudes left. What did you do, send him to sensitivity training so he'd stop calling Earth girls wenches?"
Well, is he wrong, though?
I see.
Right.
Where's
I'm not
the
saying he's
lie?
wrong.
I see he's following the Nick Spencer school of putting reasonable things in the mouths of villains.
Yep.
Well, and then here comes female Thor. She Falcon punches this guy and says, "I'm the kind who just broke your jaw, and that's for saying feminist like it's a 4-letter word, you creep."
Yep.
That was she was ahead of her time.
It's just the sheer amount of on the nose cringe.
No.
Oh, you mean the writing is really shitty and not subtle
Yes,
at all?
well, it's
yeah.
no, it's the bias and the point. The point they're trying to make is just so fucking on the nose. There's no nuance. There's nothing that even makes you think this might actually be an interesting character. It's
The writers of the comic are not going to take your sexism, your bigotry, and they're certainly not going to take a writing course.
Shit! Damn!
You don't realize this is only the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yeah, no, we're just getting started.
This is 100% of Marvel comics and 25% of DC comics these days.
Yeah.
We'll go into it. We set the stage. You may now act upon it and inform everyone, including myself, how far this fucking rabbit hole goes.
Okay, oh boy. Well, just
Hold on. Let me set this up.
yeah.
I don't really like CCS.
Oh no!
Remember
you hurt
that?
my feelings.
No, remember that meme? Captain America?
Yep, Hail
Yep.
Hydra.
Yeah.
Hail Hydra.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, let me start over. Hail Anita.
Oh shit.
Hail Joss Wheaton.
Ron Paul was never right.
Oh, you
Shut your
bastard!
mouth. I will
You bastard!
come to your home.
Ghostbusters wasn't that bad.
Okay. Now we're just getting sick.
Let's say Amy Schumer's a talented comedian.
Okay, that one really hurt my soul.
Anita Sarkeesian is a talented game writer.
That was just bullshit. All right. Anyways, so tell us how
Mark Zuckerberg is human.
All right. So tell us how crazy this thing gets.
Well, we have Captain America turning into a Nazi.
Yep, because obviously it's social commentary that America is acting like a bunch of Nazis, and we're all Nazis and white supremacists and.
No, it's deeper than that. It wasn't that he turned into a Nazi.
He always was.
He was really, he was always a Nazi all along.
Which is, of course, why he punched.
Activated.
Of course, that's why he punched Hitler in the face, right?
Well,
he was deep cover.
Oh, and Iron Man became a young, black, psychotic, autistic girl.
Yeah, we'll get to Tard Williams in a minute. I'm gonna say, it's all of this stuff is so stupid. It's so hard to like. There's the Iceman. There's the forced mental conversion of Iceman to being gay. There's just all this different stuff.
There's the Islamic scripture in the X-Men comics.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say there was like a Muslim Spider-Man now or something. I'm like, what?
No, there's a bisexual Puerto Rican one.
No, that's a Kamala Khan Miss Marvel.
Speaking of the Iceman thing, if it was a gay character who got mind converted into being a straight character, wouldn't there be an uproar?
Well, my conversion was more of a fan theory.
Yeah, they never say that's what she did, but again, you have the Phoenix, the most powerful psychic.
Well, she wasn't
conceived
in
this.
This was the young Jean Grey from the past that came to the future.
Oh, sorry, they got the timeline so fucked up. I have trouble keeping track.
Even worse than the movies.
See, I have a gay friend who's very big into comics. I mean, very big. He has stashes of comics going back to fuck knows when. He buys everything with a Marvel logo on it, anything with the DC Marvel logo on it. It's fucking mental. And he hated when that happened to Iceman. He said, I'm fine with gay characters because heck knows we need representation, but why can't we have our own characters?
Well, also, is it kind of a slap in the face, too, kind of making it seem like it's like a choice instead of like something like, again, you're kind of like born with?
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, it wouldn't be bad on its own, but the thing is it goes against his character, because he's always typically been a ladies' man.
Oh, no,
and now all of a sudden...
One time, in this one panel, this one comic, it was like, ladies, phooey.
Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the reason I think why, say...
I'm just picturing Freddie Mercury saying, ladies, phooey.
Well, the reason why Miles Morales works so well as Spider-Man is because he's a different character to Peter Parker. If they'd have literally just taken Peter Parker and turned him black... Yeah. That's not a good thing to do because you're changing something about an established character. If it's a new character, then that's...
It was also a more respectful transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and slower.
It didn't feel like it was crapping all over the original comic.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't say, Peter Parker, no one gives a fuck about him, let's get him out the way as quickly as possible, like they did with Thor, and let's bring in this new diversity hire.
Well, just looking at this female Thor comic... And don't get me wrong, I don't read Thor. I haven't read much beyond these several panels that kind of embody everything that my impression of this is it just me, or are these collections of bits just basically the comic writers giving the middle finger to the comic readers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like nice rhetoric you have there, but where's the story?
Oh, you should look at their Twitter profiles.
But it's like they're actively saying, they're putting words in the mouths of the readers through this character, Crusher. And then the comic book characters are basically like retorting, saying, oh, you're using feminism like it's a 4-letter word.
Yeah,
which it is.
That's basic Marvel. Shit on the fans all the time.
Yeah, they're using supervillains as strawmen. Right. Literally.
Yeah, and then
it's just such a weird way to hate on the people who like your stuff,
Well, that's the thing. The sale of comic books has gone down in recent years.
Yeah, blockbotting.
What does that tell you?
No one likes being lectured to. That's why.
Or blockbotting.
It's also that, but apparently as well, there was. Hang on, I got the exact quote here because it's funny.
Yeah. Are you talking about when the VP of marketing blamed white people for their low sales?
No,
Oh
like,
no. This is something else. But I'm trying to get the exact quote. Here it is. At the New York Comic Con in October 2017, a breakfast held by Marvel exclusively for comic book retailers went awry when a few retailers peeved at declining sales, and they laid the blame on black, homo, and freaking female characters put out by Marvel.
Yep.
Was that article written by Rich Johnston?
This article is from Inverse.com, talking about the title of the article is Comicsgate Explained: Bigots Milkshake Marvel DC Gamergate.
Yep.
The title of the article is Comicsgate is Gamergate's next horrible evolution. Supporters want to save comics, but their reasons do not make sense.
Oh yeah.
And following on from that.
Sorry.
I was going to say, following on from that last quote I just said about the Comic-Con people, since 2015, Marvel had a dramatically changed universe in which the mantles of white straight male characters like Thor and Wolverine were handed to women, and the Hulk had become an Asian teenager.
And gay.
Of course, there were retailers who opposed this view, but the event added momentum to what would happen later in the fall and winter, where it showed a vocal segment of comic consumers were eager to express their dissatisfaction and bigotry to Marvel's face. And of course, as we know, the customer is always wrong.
Wait, is that actually in the article?
No, that's just something I added on at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're just saying what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because, I mean, the thing is, the people that demand these changes, these socially, progressive changes in these comic books, they don't actually...
say socially bankrupt.
They don't buy anything.
Yeah. When the comic actually comes out, they don't buy it. So they don't...
So
the comic company doesn't make any money out of it.
That's so bourgeois capitalist.
Well, no, they actually have, there's a few people like Diversity Comics, Yellow Flash and them have actually found pictures of tweets of people like going through their Twitter history where they say, "Oh, support this comic! I can't believe it's going away." And then they go in the Wayback Machine a little bit and they give a link to the site they used to pirate the comic they're telling you to support.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you got to put your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean? And the fact is, what?
I was going to say...
We were talking about pirating?
Yeah, he was talking about pirating, and he's pointing at me saying Laughing Man, and I also use the moniker, hit them at their wallets. But is this the reason why social justice warriors are usually communists, because no one will buy their shit?
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but I mean, the thing is that these people aren't just comic book fans. These people who said that, they're retailers. Their livelihood depends on selling comics. So, especially
in a digital age.
So your social justice bullshit and this toxic shit, literally toxic shit, that you're putting into these comics is ruining their business.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can see you're getting very spirited, Nat, but it gets better.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, well, let's talk about the YouTubers of this community. I would say it started with Captain Cummings. Kind of.
Yeah, but
he's not as prominent now. But he inspired a guy, our boy, Zach. Diversity in Comics.
In Comics, yep. An ironic title. Diversity in Comics has been kind of the firebrand. He's not like the leader of Comicsgate per se, but he is kind of the voice. He's been real big about pointing out exactly some of the stuff you were just covering about. All the comic book stores that have gone under in the last year, he grabbed sales figures and translated each of the charts and figures to show us like, okay, no, this comic is bombing and you're deliberately trying to manipulate market data. Because what they would do is they would force retailers, if they ordered a certain run, they would add onto that order and force them to take the American Chavez or the... Lady Thor or different volumes, whether they wanted them or not. So they're stuck with toxic stock that they can't return and they can't sell.
Well, it makes good toilet paper.
Yeah, it's...
No, that's how you get anal warts.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially if you're using the fucking comics that Stan Lee's ex-partner tried to stamp with Stan Lee's stolen fucking blood.
Oh.
Yep.
Speaking of people getting bled dry... Stan Lee, there's been a lot of rumors lately that...
that's a kind of off topic.
Well,
Doesn't really have anything to do with Comicsgate.
Well, this is just a tangent, but Stan Lee, who, as we all know, created many of the classic comic book characters that we know and love today...
that horrible white racist.
Well, apparently, there are rumors that he's been exploited by a bunch of people, including his own family, and he only recently got control of his Twitter account. Before that, he didn't have control of his Twitter account, and someone else would put like just PR bullshit on his account.
Yep.
And now he has control of it. And when Elon Musk was going off about journalism and the media a couple of days ago, Stanley actually joined in and said, "Yeah, I know what you mean. Fake news, essentially."
Yeah. Well, they're all seeing it because, fake news has been a big deal as part of this comic books and Comicsgate too. Like,
ethics and comics
journalism. Yeah, Artemis was mentioning, where the article was. You were mentioning before.
That actually gives me a good milkshakes.
Make mine milkshake.
Make milkshake. Yeah, that was a thing that happened. That went way out of proportion. So you have a bunch of these female editors going out getting milkshakes and.
It was a bunch of women who there had been another woman who had died recently who worked at Marvel and was a pioneer of sorts. So they all went out for milkshakes to like commemorate her and talk about her and pay respects to her. And they took a selfie while they were there and they posted it on Twitter.
And they got like 5 mildly salty comments, like fake geek girl and such. Oh, and one dude that said, "I'd bang the one on the right." And this.
So basically, typical internet comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this got blown out of proportion to like a harassment campaign against women.
God damn it! And when half of all of the harassment that happens towards women is perpetrated by other women.
Bleeding Cool and Rich Johnson come in and they condemn diversity in comics for harassing these women and lying. Oh yeah, it gets better.
Yeah, it does.
This diversity in comics also gets a bunch of stalkers and stuff.
Yep. Well, before we get on to that, I just, if you got the article with Make Mine Milkshake, I want you to take a picture, I want you to look at that selfie picture for a moment. I want you to really look at these editors, the people who are responsible for all this. They're all 20-something women.
Yep.
So, let's really ask ourselves for a moment, because if you look at their boss, Axel Alonso and Tom Rebord, who are basically, fatter, older white guys who probably smell very interesting. Let's really ask ourselves, is it because these women are talented and are going to bring on the next great age of stereotyping?
Or are these two guys Harvey Weinsteins?
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, not that. They're just work girlfriends.
Yep. Let's say they brought them on because they were young, nubile, and they smell pretty.
See, essentially you're saying they're a bunch of Joss Whedons.
Well, no, not that. They don't touch them.
Yeah, they don't. They just like being near them.
Not yet. I mean, come on. Whenever there's a male feminist, you can just start down the fucking rape charge clock.
No, these guys are cuts.
Yeah, right.
These guys are.
Oh, they are.
Cuts.
It's terrible.
The thing is many people don't want to admit it, but the main audience to this day, and well, pretty much ever since comics came out, like the big superhero comics anyway, the main consumer of them have been boys. So of course, comics are going to cater mostly to boys. And you can't just have a bunch of women suddenly turn up and demand to change a character that's been going for nigh on 70 years.
Oh, and that's my biggest contention with this Thor character, is the fact that this female Thor and the people behind him are basically, again, flipping off, flying the bird right in front of the faces of people who have followed Thor for ages. And when this female character says, "No, Thor, you're no longer worthy to hold the hammer," basically meaning you're no longer worthy to have this comic, and she gets shoehorned in for some Deus Ex Machina kind of shit. It's just such a slap in the face towards people who love the character and have read the character for ages.
And again, bear in mind,
it's so anti-consumerist.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, and bear in mind with the unworthy thing, we didn't get an explanation on that for 3 years.
Of course not. They didn't have one.
Yeah.
It's just we need to make this a woman now, and that's all it needs. That's all it's needed.
Yeah.
We need more vaginas.
Okay, so you want to talk about the stalkers or the conspiracy to get him to commit assault by triggering his PTSD that he doesn't have?
Whichever one's juicy.
Demon Eater?
Oh, they're all juicy, man. That's the problem. Is we have enough stuff here to do an entire mini-series, so we kind of have to focus our fire.
Okay, do a little bit of each, and then just kind of give us the spark notes of each one.
Okay, so Susan Auger stalks him. He gets, and PNC gets a restraining order. A bunch of people in the Facebook group try to conspire to well, like I said, triggers PTSD and make Zach punch somebody, even though he doesn't have PTSD, and that would be illegal.
Yeah, he was a former active military, and as you might imagine, that just goes over really well with these people.
Oh, and Mark Waid said,
"Yes, Mark Waid.
If this guy comes to this con, I want you to call me, so I can give a talk to him, even if I'm in the middle of a talk."
Is it just me, or do a lot of social justice warriors seem to like to?
He's a bully.
Well, they bully people, and then when they finally get hit back, they cry like they're the victims.
You mean like that video of that girl who's hitting the policeman with a balloon, and then like a bunch of times, and then he just does it once back, and she's on the floor crying, acting like she's doubled over in pain.
Oh, I'm thinking more like that comic where like you see like a guy riding a bicycle with a stick in his hand, and he bends over and puts a stick in between his front two spokes, and the last panel is him laying on the ground crying and holding his knee.
Yep. Well, and that's a lot of it, and like just the whole thing with diversity in comics, like the stuff he's gone through is ridiculous. There was the stalking thing. There's Kurt Eichenwald. Mr. I Can't Find Tentacle Porn himself shows up, at first trying to defend it, and then diversity in comics, like, yeah, I've looked into you, and you you were allegedly tied to child porn and all this stuff, so I'm not sure I want your help. And he like sends him all these DMs threatening to blackmail him and expose him and dox him and all this other stuff, and they have to get through a third party to try to get him to calm down. It's like, it was so bad it was covered by Mr. Medicare. It was complete batshit insanity.
Oh, and then there's the trans furry person.
Oh God.
What was its name?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
That was like, it was like, I wish this DNC guy got killed by an IED, is what she said.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm proud I said that.
Yeah, well, it takes a certain amount of mental illness to be able to say that you're proud of saying something that horrible.
Well, and in diversity in comics, again, we're not trying to make this all about him, but he is a big player in this. Came up with a term he likes to call purse puppies. It's when you get a dog that doesn't really serve a purpose, but you think it gets you status and attention, so you get it and you keep it in your purse. Mm-hmm. And that's what he says a lot of these diversity hires are. They're there to check off the box, say, oh, we hired this black trans dragonkin person to write our comics, and that makes us better and more progressive, even though they're not actually producing anything on the product.
They're in the mailroom.
Okay.
If only.
Well, look at American Chavez's writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we drove by, shot all the small events, but now we get to a really big one, the IndieGoGo.
Yeah.
This is the thing I don't get about when it comes to diversity in the workplace. I don't get why do you have to have a black person working on a comic with a black main character? Why is that necessary? Why is that necessary? Why is it necessary to have a Hispanic woman writing for a Hispanic character? Isn't that racist?
Yeah, you'd think so.
You stay in your box.
Well, yep. Look at Stan Lee. Look at the comics he wrote. He wrote a comic called fucking Black Panther, for crying out loud.
Yep.
He wrote He wrote X-Men, which is supposed to be an allegory for racism in the 60s. Are you telling me that because he's a white man, he shouldn't be allowed to write for any of those characters?
Well, and more than that, a lot of people forget that Stan Lee is a great big Jew, so he kind of has feelings about the Third Reich.
Especially his boy Captain America becoming a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he was totally
being a Nazi.
I don't think anybody told him about that.
Yeah, they kind of kept him out of the loop for a while.
Happy birthday, Grandma! Hail Hydra!
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so anyway, the IndieGoGo.
Oh, Jesus.
So, while this was going on, the people, SJW creators, radio silence. They weren't trying to... Their first tactic was just not to poke the hornet's nest at all, because they figured out it only gets him more views and success. Mm-hmm. That was like the only smart move they've ever done. But of course they fuck it up. Near the end of the campaign, after he made like $150,000, a bunch of retail store owners collude to not stock the book.
Just to let everybody at home know what's going on, Diversity in Comics basically crowdfunded a comic book called Jawbreakers that he was writing.
Jawbreakers Lost Souls.
Jawbreakers Lost Souls, apologies.
Okay.
That he not only successfully crowdfunded, was even got an indie publisher named Anarchic Press to carry, which would have allowed it to be carried in comic book stores. It was part of a sub-movement or a sister movement to Comicsgate he created called hashtag Move the Needle, where he encouraged people to buy comics based on recommendations from independent people and feature them and promote them on their social media.
Oh yeah, and these retailers threatened to drop any publisher that would publish DMC's books.
Wow, you mean almost like the collusion that there was in the video game industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Anarch Press basically dropped the ball on Zach.
Yeah, they were threatened by, it was Mark Waid, I believe.
Oh yeah,
was the
Mark Waid,
big perpetrator of it.
Yeah, he was the main spearhead behind this push, using the name of Marvel to do it, which is highly illegal.
Yes, and basically they threatened Anarchic Press into dropping his book. Now the book is still alive; he's still going to self-publish, but again, this was something the market said they wanted.
Oh yeah, yeah. Before it was happening, it was at 150,000. Right now, it's like 1/3 So Streisand effect.
Yeah, well, that's the other crazy phenomenon that's come out of Comicsgate too. Is you're seeing a lot of comic book creators, independent comic book creators, going to crowdfunding sites and just getting the money themselves.
Oh yeah, Ethan Van Sciver's doing a Cyberfrog Kickstarter.
Yep,
and it's got like over 100,000 last time I checked.
Yep. You got Diversity in Comics Jawbreakers. You've got Ron Z.
Chuck Dixon doing the Kill All Men book.
Yeah.
Right. It's a Ravage Kill All Men. Mitch Brettweiser is going to having a project out soon.
Yes, and you've got Ron Z doing what was originally supposed to be just a single comic called Patriotica, and now he's doing an entire line called Malt Olympus Comics because he's so successfully gotten so much funding. And I should stress that he hasn't had one individual really successful campaign. He's actually done each funding campaign issue by issue for each new comic, and he is raking in thousands of dollars per issue.
So this thing's pretty much spawned an entirely new market for comics.
Yeah, and there's been good, there's been bad with the good. There's a guy who goes by the name of Vox Day who's starting a comic line called Alt Hero, which I mentioned that on the last Wild Cards, or he's just kind of going the opposite direction of the SJWs. Instead of making it super politically correct, he's trying to make it super politically incorrect with the same kind of lack of structure, narrative structure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's creating a parody of what the SJWs have been doing to the comic industry.
This is subtlety!
Yep. Unwittingly, but yes. But again, it's just been this fascinating thing, and it's, again, with Marvel constantly losing money and complaining about it, it's very interesting that they keep ignoring the fact that these comics are getting funded, and you would think that at least part of them would want to know, okay, why are they being successful all of a sudden? Why are people choosing to give them this money and not give that money to us?
Well, because they don't like being lectured to.
Yeah.
They don't like being abused as fans, called bigots and racists and Nazis for not liking these comic book creators' work.
Yeah, because these creators are actually listening to their feedback.
You guys don't have our political beliefs. You guys are scum.
Yeah.
Although, I will say, when it comes to Marvel, they have been changing some stuff for the better.
Well, yeah, they have to, otherwise they're not going to make any fucking money out of comics.
Well, they got the
Captain
movies
America's
now.
no longer a Nazi. Thor again. Iron Man is back.
Well, that's only because in the last year or so, basically, it was finally the straw that broke the camel's back. They had it basically came to an event called Secret Empire, which is going to be the big book. They were going to explain everything about, Nazi Captain America. It was going to be amazing, except that the writing was terrible and the art was worse. If Fubu was on here, I could show her any one panel from that book and she would cry. She would weep. She would pick up the page and go, "Baby, who hurt you? Show me the bad man who hurt you."
And this is from an artist who makes their hands as big as the heads.
Yeah, no, seriously. At least I can tell who's who and what's what and whose face belongs to which character with her art. You could not tell it with this art.
It's a little bit Rob Liefeld, huh?
Yeah, no, it was worse than Rob Liefeld. I mean,
wow.
Seriously, wow. I will call up a picture just to give you some perspective on this, because this is really where it went to hell for these people. Because right after this run finished, Basically, the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics was fired, and I mean out of a cannon.
Wow.
I mean, Axel Alonso was gone.
Well, here's a concept. I think Nat was the one who said it, just to give credit where credit's due.
Woo.
Is that you have this entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, where granted, you have, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Iron Man and Black Panther and all these characters, and you go to the comic book store, and you get female Thor, Asian homosexual Hulk. You get like this.
Yes.
This
that was brought up.
You get this revisionist history of comic book characters that you don't know anything about.
Yeah, the point of it is really, if you want to get people to start reading comic books, then they're going to want to read comic books that they already kind of know something about. The likelihood of picking something up.
I saw it.
The likelihood of just picking up a random thing from out of nowhere and giving it a try, people are not going to be as willing to do that than just buy a comic about this character that they already kind of know.
Well, and here's the reason why I've never gotten into comic books is I bought a handful of just random comic books from a Sears catalog when I was like 10 years old. Came with 15 comic books, right? I opened them up, and I tried reading some of them, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on because I didn't read the past 300 fucking issues.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of find a good.
There's really hard starting point with comics unless you buy like a compendium. Like I got a Deadpool compendium. You can kind of like get your way around that. But just picking up a comic book and trying to start in like a virgin, I guess, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, I think indies are going to be the way of the future from here when it comes to comics. Like with Jawbreakers, you can find the first issue online for free. He actually put it out for free on Dropbox. Oh, and speaking of which, Mark Waid's probably not going to work at Marvel anymore.
Yeah, because of what he pulled them, getting Jawbreakers pulled off the publication. And again, we've been picking on Marvel a lot, but I do want to stress that this has been spreading industry-wide. Image has had
some DC, a lot of Image.
Yeah.
SJW Joker is what I've heard, and that's criminal.
Well, The White Knight actually hasn't been that bad.
It's actually a really good book.
Yeah.
So since you guys have actually been reading it, here's a question: Joker's really good at manipulating people to get some type of nefarious scheme that usually dabbles in nihilism and tries to disrupt Batman, who's kind of like a symbol for order. Is this SJW Joker kind of is he playing people with his whole?
Well, he's not really. It's not really SJW Joker. I guess he's a little progressive, but he is very manipulative.
Yeah, I mean he really is a good Joker as a hero. Is the idea?
What White Knight was supposed to mean, not the other thing that Rich Johnson wrote.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rich Johnson is very infamous for pretty much lying all the time as a writer.
That's kind of a weird concept to me, though, because the fundamental thing about the Joker is that he's criminally insane, right? So
so are the SJWs.
So if you take away his insanity, then he's not the Joker anymore. So it's not really the Joker as a hero; it's just some dude as the hero.
Yeah, that's the thing. This dude is actually really awesome.
Yeah, but
it's actually really recommend reading Batman White Knight.
Yeah,
I'd say it's the next. It's as good as The Dark Knight Rises. No, not The Dark Knight Returns. That's the Frank Miller book.
Well, and I guess just to cite some specific examples, IDW Publishing was where they've been having a lot of this problem too. With Transformers, they had a young woman who'd come on as a writer and editor, and she wanted to start including more female Transformers in there. And there was a long-time writer for Transformers, like in the UK actually, way back in the 80s, named Simon Furman. And he had some ideas on how he wanted it to be done, and he was the longtime writer for IDW series. And basically, this chick came in and said, "No, I'm not doing it your way." And they argued back and forth on Twitter, and it was like this whole big mess until basically he was finally shoved out the door. And again, this is a guy who's been writing this stuff for decades and decades across continents, and he gets shoved right out the door because the young talent has this great idea. And they continued on with this trend, hiring a guy who is very vocally anti-military to write on G.I. Joe, to the point that on the anniversary of 9/11 last year, he gets on and says, "Oh, if you weren't living in New York at the time, you don't have a right to have any feelings about 9/11."
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and this
This
kind
guy
of
is Aubrey citizen, by the way.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
have a father, if you live in a different state and you had a father who was at an important business meeting at the World Trade Center
At the
that
towers?
day, oh well, it doesn't matter. You weren't there, so
my father was booked on a flight to New York that day.
apparently Seth MacFarlane was meant to be on that plane that day, but he got delayed or something and didn't make it to the airport.
Damn.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it's almost as good as Ta-Nehisi Coates' stuff about 9/11. That's like, oh, yeah, I don't care about these firemen and these people, policemen helping everybody. They're less than human.
Yep.
Wasn't there also like some kind of dirty deal that I don't remember which comic manufacturer did it, but they did like a deal with this arms company, and they were going to have a bunch of
It was Marvel.
It was it Marvel?
Marvel.
For fuck's sake, Marvel! What's wrong with you? They're just money whores.
Yeah.
You're just money
What's
whores
that?
at this
Well,
point.
they're owned by Disney.
They dropped the Raytheon comic.
But yeah, they had a dirty deal going on with like this arms dealers.
Raytheon.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they were going to release a bunch of comics
I
where.
should know. I have stock in their company.
So they were going to release a bunch of comics with like their branding on it, where they like using weapons and shit. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, Marvel! How can you sink any
Yeah.
lower?
Well, there's actually a bit of a story behind that too, because when you confront SJWs on like the stuff that's been going on with Marvel, one of the big things they like to argue about is a phenomenon called event fatigue. Basically, imagine Game of Thrones had a special miniseries event that was like supposed to be redefine it, and imagine they did this every single week. That's basically what Marvel Comics has been doing. They've been doing relaunches and world-shaking events and changing this and changing
DC
that.
as well. New
Cause-
Yeah,
52.
DC's not so much.
Because
Yeah,
it's because
they kind of learned their lesson.
it's because they are desperate.
I know, but there's actually a bigger thing behind that. You see, Marvel was in big financial trouble right up until the start of the 2000s when they switched over leadership of their company to a businessman and a bit of a recluse named Ron Perelman. And he's he's pretty much the human version of Ebenezer Scrooge. He absolutely does everything as cheap as possible. And now, the plus side
cheap
was
cheap artists, cheap writers.
yeah, and
Every creator there probably lives with has 8 roommates.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, he was the one who was a big part, in a big way, responsible for opening the door to Bob Iger and the Disney deal. But he was also the one who had to be kicked out of that deal by Kevin Feige because he was basically threatening to get Robert Downey Jr. and a lot of the other key actors kicked off because they just dared to ask for a raise in their contracts. And
Well,
anyway,
to be fair, the amount that Robert Downey Jr. is asking to be in a film makes me want to smack him in the face. So
yes, but the point being, they do have an incompetent manager. It is the thing is if this guy had been in charge of any other company, he would have been fired a long time ago.
hey, man, if it wasn't
Yeah.
for Disney propping them up and churning out movies, that Marvel would probably go under.
Marvel Comics
yeah.
would be gone by now with all the decisions they've made, and we have proof of that because DC launched an event before all of this called New 52 a while ago, and it didn't go over well with the readers at all for the same reasons. They just changed things over, and funnily enough, and oftentimes in the opposite direction of what Marvel did. They there was a very infamous Slutty Starfire comic where she just didn't have a lot of thoughts in her head and was wearing skimpy outfits, and she was bored. You want to fuck? Like literally. And, it just pissed people off. And they just said, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. And just had this defensive attitude. And watched their sales numbers plummet in response. So, after a few years of that, they finally just gave up and started a new line called DC Rebirth, where they kind of brought things back into focus to what, but reverse the timeline a little bit back to what it was. And in
Bring back
addition...
some important characters.
Right. And in addition to that, and this is the key, especially in the entertainment industry as we know it, they actually issued an apology, across all their books in a written form,
Oh, wow.
and offered lowered all the price of all of their comics by $1 from $4 something, which is what Marvel still charges, to $3 something, and they had a refund policy in place. Basically, the editor-in-chief said, if you don't like my comic, send me a proof of purchase and the comic book back to me, and I will mail you a check.
That's some pretty good public relations.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying is they've proven that if you don't have to change your political ideology or kiss the customer's ass. You just have to acknowledge when you've made a mistake.
When the sales show it, DC comic books tend to crowd out Marvel in the top 10s.
Yeah, and DC's numbers have been strong ever since. I mean, they've been hitting out of the park. They've been going out of their way to capture every single bit of talent that Marvel's let go.
I feel like a murderous row of artists there.
Well, this is the key to having a successful franchise. You have to respect the fans. You can't just poo-poo all of the old fans who've been fans of your comics for years in favor of these brand new, quote-unquote, nerd, gamer, geeky girls who turn up out of nowhere, pretend that they like these comics, and then go, well, I wish that there was a strong, badass female, pansexual, whatever the fuck. And then you end up spending a lot of money making these comics, and they don't actually go out and buy them. And then when the male fans complain, the ones who have been there since the beginning, oh, you Nazi, sexist, racist, homophobes.
Yeah.
Well, and and they also just do a gender swap on existing characters because apparently women are so creative.
Lazy.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, and here's what's really infuriating about it for me as somebody who's been reading comics since the 4th grade. When you say, oh, I wish there were more strong female characters or characters, I'm like, what have you been reading?
Exactly.
Storm, Jean Grey, Wonder Woman.
Also, can I point out that Deadpool 2, which came out recently, managed to integrate a diverse cast flawlessly without rubbing it in your fucking face?
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I think the key there, I really think the big key there is that they went after talented minorities. Mm-hmm. They went after the best of the best, and that's what I think strikes everyone as so disingenuous about what Marvel and Image and all these are trying to do. If you really wanted to push push women in comics like to the top, then you should take the top, the most successful women in the industry, which is, and I know some people are going to argue with me on this, but I would have to say Gail Simone and Amanda Conner.
Boo.
Yeah, I'd say, find me a better example.
I'm pretty sure Gail Simone was like Joss Whedon in drag.
Yeah, anyways, the point is, if you pick them as your head writer, or pick them as your editor-in-chief, I mean, these two have been going to comic conventions for decades now. They know which women out there have a booth and are just waiting for their big break. They know the talent. They could have brought them together. If you wanted, more Latinos in comics, you should have hired Marv Wolfman. No, not Marv Wolfman. George Perez. Sorry, I got the partners confused there. But if you wanted more black people in comics, you should hire Aaron McGruder. Mm-hmm. Go after the people who've had success in this format. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Gail Simone, DC doesn't actually want much to do with her because she was kind of a bully around the office.
I know, but
she was actually going after people for following DNC.
I know.
Well,
but
the thing is as well with Deadpool 2, I really liked the character of Domino, and I just think of how she was in that film. She didn't show up and be like, "Yeah, it's me. I'm a girl, and I'm black, so # Black Lives Matter." I hate growing up in a white cis hetero patriarchy, but I'm gonna deal with it. She wasn't like that. She was just a normal character.
Her power was white privilege.
Luck. Well,
no, but the thing
there's also that one scene with Negasonic Teenage Warhead where she's like, "Yeah, this is my girlfriend. You got a problem with that?" And it kind of started going down that route where it's like they're gonna finger wag at you, and Deadpool totally diffuses it by saying, "Hold on there, Fox and friends."
He was just like, I don't care that you're a lesbian. I just find it baffling that anyone would date you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you compare that to Spider-Man: Homecoming, where you have the race-bent Mary Jane character at the fucking Washington Monument, and they ask her if she wants to go up. No, because it was built by slaves, and then you got the black guard in the background just nodding, and it's like, ugh, puke.
Well,
you're not gonna visit. Yes, you're not gonna visit the fucking pyramids in Egypt, then, bitch?
Yeah. Well, no. The great news about that one though is, when she said
if the Egyptians were black and they had slaves, is that black on black crime?
Well, no, because Jews, remember?
Yeah, the slaves were Jews, so it's all right.
Yeah,
because they were white people.
Yeah, the thing with the MG character, the ended up being a good thing, is that when she did that, when she had tried to get that pop singer to take that identity, the fandom literally turned around and such united numbers and said, "No, the fuck she isn't, that they kind of had to back off of that fast. Like, Kevin Feige stepped in and said, no, you are not doing this.
Sony, you get your dick off that.
Yeah.
Here's a question. I think this might be a decent way to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge comic guy though, but I do know my X-Men.
Right.
And I'm kind of curious how the current SJW era of comic writing differs from, say, the progressive comics of the 60s and 70s. To take what little...
not to mention, like, the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah. To take what little I know of the X-Men, you have two theories. Professor X's and Magneto's.
Yeah.
Xavier says persuade and convince others to accept them. And, by...
And save their lives.
Yeah. And then Magneto says, let's make Homo superior dominate Homo sapiens through force in order to keep us from being oppressed again. It seems to me like these two ideologies are kind of the differences between the older comics and the new SJW round in those respective viewpoints.
Yeah.
I'd say you hit the nail on the head.
Because, I mean...
Yeah, no, I agree.
The X-Men originally, it was like, hey, we're going to show you that, we're going to convince you and persuade you, and we're going to be part of this, and we want to be equal. Whereas this one is just beating you over the head repeatedly.
Yep. Well, and it's funny because X-Men was actually, through a lot of this stuff that we were referencing, X-Men was actually inactive because of Ron Perlman, oh, Fox has the contract with that, so don't do any comics promoting it. I want to bleed the franchise out of them. So they were actually blissfully safe from all this. And when they did come back, they hired a militant Muslim to be the artist, and he snuck in all kinds of
anti-Jewish stuff in there.
Yeah, Islamic extremist stuff in the art book, and he was fired after 3 issues just because they didn't dare keep him on.
No kidding.
Oh, that was just X-Men Gold. X-Men Red, they fight the wage gap, and the 7-year-old is exploring her sexuality.
Aww.
I think you made Natalie sad.
I know, it's terrible.
Yeah, and again, it's like you said, Laughing Man, it's so stupid because if any comic should be the champions of diversity,
it's X-Men.
It should be X-Men.
Oh,
yeah,
Champions. That's the book.
Oh yeah.
Remember
God.
Oh god. It was terrible.
Well, or
I'm pretty sure Mark Waid's a pedophile.
Well, and then there was that Wasp book they had where this one it was basically about this one chick who,
Girl in Action Research Lab.
Yes,
we love the science. Also, I'm not wearing any underwear.
Okay, but yes, basically this one chick decides to make to better the world. She needs to make an all-female science group named Girl. That's the acronym GIRL.
Is it me, or are there a lot of pedophiles?
You notice how the acronym GIRL doesn't include the letters STEM.
Oh, that's bad.